Having completed my class Multicultural Psychology, I have learned a great deal about the facets and study of multicultural psychology, and will be pursuing this topic in future studies. For me, several chapters and pieces of our exploration into multicultural studies stood out. I will be reviewing and reflecting on those through the following video. An immigrant is a person or multiple people who move to another country voluntarily. On the other hand, a refugee is a person or multiple people who are forced to move out of their country because of war or political oppression. Immigrants are able to move on their own and choose to leave their homeland. Refugees are forced out and don't usually have a choice. Everything about a refugee is unplanned with little to none notice. Refugees also hope to come back to their home origin. Whether you are a refugee or an immigrant, there are going to be language barriers, difficulty finding a support system, there will be new family roles, and employment and education is going to be difficult to obtain and adjust to. Having no support system is one of the main stressors for these immigrants and refugees once they have arrived in their new country. Family roles and hierarchies are also shifting once they have moved because there are now different decisions to make. Employment is hard to find because if you are an immigrant or a refugee, you may not speak the same language as everyone else. Education can be difficult for the children and adults because the children have a difficult time adjusting to the U.S. school system and the adults typically have limited education. Each experience affects acculturation because these are the different experiences and changes that people undergo when they come in contact with a new culture. This is really important to understand because we may not recognize the hardships these immigrants and refugees are going through. Some countries and people may never have to experience being forced out of their home country, so we should be sensitive to their experience. In Chapter 6, we covered stereotypes, prejudices, discrimination, and racism. A stereotype is a generalization about a group or its members based on perceptions. A prejudice is a negative judgment about a group or its members based upon their categorization. Discrimination is a negative behavior toward a group or its members. Lastly, racism is a prejudice or discrimination directed against someone of a different race. Stereotyping and prejudices occur within ourselves and do not hurt others, but discrimination and racism leaves quite a bit of damage. This damage can range from irritation and annoyance to blatant unfairness and sometimes death. The perpetrators of racism live in fear because they do not want to go out of their comfort zone or accept the fact that people are different from them. Racism can also be covert and unintentional, which then makes it difficult to identify. Another form of racism is microaggressions. These microaggressions can build up over time and can eventually become burdensome. Some people don't even realize they are being racist or are unaware that their views are racist. Moving forward, we should all be aware of our stereotypes and implicit biases and be sure not to act on them. We should also not discriminate or be racist towards someone just because you don't want to move out of your comfort zone. It is important to learn about the differences between yourself and someone else and take something away from it that is useful. Health disparities are differences in the incidence, prevalence, mortality, and burden of diseases and other adverse health conditions that exist among specific groups. It is also the difference in health outcomes that are closely linked with social, economic, and environmental disadvantage. A few health disparities that occur in our country today are: 1. Minorities are more likely to be diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer. 2. Patients of lower socioeconomic status are less likely to receive recommended diabetic services and are more likely to be hospitalized for diabetes and its complications. And 3, African Americans have an 80% higher rate of stroke-related deaths and a 50% higher rate of mortality due to heart disease compared to whites. Some of the main causes of health disparities are racism, poverty, and structural barriers. Implicit biases may play a role in health disparities as well. For example, a doctor might believe someone who is Hispanic cannot afford insurance and doesn't have any, so they might give them different treatment. These implicit biases can have a huge impact on health disparities. Health disparities are a real thing, and it is a huge issue within the United States healthcare system.